All right, we've roped in Wise for Africa Director Advocate Brenda Madumise-Pajibo to weigh in on the recent spate of violence against women and children in the country. Advocate, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. In fact, I don't even know what is good about this afternoon. I mean, the discovery of Lanas follows just a spate of killings leveled against women and children. We've now seen renewed levels of fear sweep through the country. Let's firstly get your reaction to this latest discovery and, of course, murder, and how this teenage girl's body was just found mutilated, as we're hearing now from the community.
Hi, good afternoon. And as you say, maybe it's not a good afternoon. And it's never a good afternoon or a day in South Africa, because these cases happen daily. Some of them make it to the media. Others don't, and that's the reality of many families and victims of gendered violence. So thank you for having me this afternoon, and good afternoon.
And I mean, just, hearing in that clip from that community member, we do understand, of course, before Lanas' body was discovered, 2 days before, the community had actually marched to the police station just to speak about the levels of crime in that particular area. How does Lanas' latest murder illuminate the inability for law enforcement agencies, from the police to the justice system, firstly to curb crime and perhaps also achieve successful convictions? Because, I mean, the statistics are as staggering as ever.
Yeah, so I think we need to start to ask ourselves very difficult questions around the capability and the capacity of the South African police service in addressing and attending to crimes in the country of 60 million people, right? And these crimes range from white-collar crime to the violence that we have: kidnappings, femicide cases, sexual violations cases, rape cases, all of it. In it, you need to bring in applications of the protection orders that must be served by the police. Do we as a country have the resources? Do we have the SAPS that has got the capacity and the capability to successfully police 60 million South Africans, right, in our diversity and in the diversity of the areas that we live in? We live in areas that sometimes don't even have basic services like water, electricity, and ablution facilities. We find, citizens of this country living in places that were never meant for people to stay in. And once we allow such to happen, the levels of violence are just going to happen, and they cannot be reached to ensure that you keep your citizens safe. So that's so when government is talking about the planning and all sorts of things, we really have to look at how, one, we are planning and designing our places of stay, and what do we need to make sure that any place of stay that we all want to live in, what should it have as a basic minimum, right? Because you can't have a place set up where there is a school, there is a clinic, but there is no policing and visible policing in that area, and so impunity takes the precedence over law and order and safety, because there's no accountability for anything. So we can march to police stations, but if that police station does not have the resources to cater for that community, we are in trouble.
And I mean, just on our screens, we're showing just the number of women who have died over the past few years and whose murders really, really shocked us, as you will recall. Just on the recent murder of Olorado, a concerning and escalating trend during these cases of gender-based violence, femicide, is victim blaming. I mean, as we've seen with Olorado's murder, when we look at community and societal responses, I mean, what can communities do to create, firstly, safer spaces for women, And more importantly, what can men do and be better at in terms of engaging in conversation to challenge each other, especially when we speak of toxic masculinity, and support behavioral change? I mean, men, are they speaking enough? Are they speaking out? How do we stop this victim blaming?
No. They're not speaking enough, and we shouldn't be shocked and surprised with the commentary that you see on social media when they are victim blaming. Victim blaming has been with us for time immemorial. That we do not want to account and look at our behavior and address why the violence that we mete out against women, against young women, against children. And why we are sexually violent towards women and children. So we don't want to that. So what we tend to do is to deflect the attention from ourselves as men and decide to victim blame, right? So the conversations must happen and must happen amongst themselves as men. There are many men's forums and organizations that exist in this country that are trying to bring in positive masculinity and engage men to have conversations around how they see women, how they relate to women. But I always keep on reminding South Africa that we just received a prevalence study on gender-based violence, and that study was conducted by the HSRC, the Human Science Research Council, right? That study, which is our national prevalence study, is telling by saying to us that most men who were interviewed in that study told us that women don't obey them. They expect women to obey them. So if you have a representative of men believing that women are meant and are supposed to obey them, now you need to understand what you are dealing with, because once you as a woman don't obey this individual who believes that at all times that must be obeyed, you are going to be meted with violence. So those conversations and that study it's important for those who are working in this work, and actually for anyone who's got an interest in a violent-free South Africa, to really take that study, understand its contents, and understand its recommendations, and let those recommendations become a reality.
You know, this week we're still observing Child Protection Week. What protection do you think children have from abusive parents, for one? I mean, we've seen with the Jocelyn Smith case, also this little boy who was found in an unmarked shallow grave. We understand in that case too, his mother and Sangoma have been accused. It's still allegations at this stage, similarly to what we've seen with Jocelyn, but also protecting children from, you know, abusive educators. In schools, we hear of school bullying. We're still seeing children also being preyed upon by educators. Largely, we've seen in those statistics where it speaks of teenage pregnancies.
Yeah, so so Unati, so at home would want to believe that a member of the family will stand up and be able to report when they see abuse taking place against a child, right? So that's the first thing. And in fact, even the teachers at school, when they see a particular behavior and a pattern of behavior from the child, if they're trained properly and adequately enough, they would pick up the signs that there might be something. It might be a problem with this child, then they can refer that child to social workers, to a child psychologist, and even report it to the police, because there'll be an obligation to do so. If it's happening at the school, you want to believe that there are other teachers who can stand up for those children who can't speak for themselves and report it. So we all have a responsibility and obligation. It's not the responsibility of one person, it's a collective. Once you see it happening, you need to act and do something about it. And that's why, we've got the law that protects children, the Children's Act. It gives us the provisions that are there to be implemented to protect children. But it requires that as parents, as families, that when we see it, when we see the abuse happening, we don't sweep it under the carpet, we don't explain it away, we don't justify it, we don't reason it away. We act by bringing in those who are qualified to intervene. We bring in the police because it's a crime once we have violated a child, either by being abusive, physically, emotionally, and otherwise, or by sexually abusing that child. So we all have to act. It requires all of us to have that responsibility to act. And when we see that violence rearing its face in your home, you have a duty and responsibility to report. So let's not sit back and hope that someone else is going to do it in the home as families. And I can bet you that in most families, someone is fully aware of what is going on. And they have got that responsibility to report it and deal with it.
Absolutely. Advocate, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate your analysis. Of course, a very difficult period we're facing as South Africans. Appreciate your time. That is Wise for Africa Director, Advocate Brenda Madumise-Pajibo. Of course, we're speaking about the escalation in the violence towards women and children, with the latest body being discovered of a 14-year-old Likona Forse.